while charge.
Oh, your time is up. Your time is up. Maklap.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, I want to declare that I'm a member of Finance, National Planning. And Mr. Speaker, I rise to put the record straight. Mr. Speaker, Finance Bill as proposed, putting the record straight, the original document, Mr. Speaker, is a creation of the National Executive. Where does these proposals come from the National Executive? Most likely, National Treasury and KRA. When it is committed to this House, Mr. Speaker, it is the honors of members of Parliament as representatives of the people of Kenya to now interrogate, and that is why there is existence of executive and Parliament, because Parliament represents the people of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, when a law is passed in this House, it does not affect people who voted for Azimio or who voted for Kenya Kwanza. It affects the people of Kenya across board, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have moved from the original bill, Mr. Speaker, because if we were to vote on this original bill, Mr. Speaker, all of us in this House, including members of Finance, could have voted to draw away this bill, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, our Constitution gave us separation of powers. Separation of powers, Mr. Speaker, here Parliament will now be able to sort out and protect the people of Kenya from the excesses of the executive, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, putting the record straight is that finance bill has been there even when I was very young. I could watch Parliament where a minister come and say, beginning midnight tonight, this is going to change. That was finance bill, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, when Kenyans try to us say reject finance bill, Mr. Speaker, you wonder whether in fact, our response to most of them is, which clause do you want us to reject? Mr. Speaker, our sitting down for 14 days as members of Finance Bill and listening to professionals and Kenyans was not an exercise in futility. We listened to Kenyans. And Mr. Speaker, as we listened to Kenyans, another process of the budget making process was going on. Demand, supply. Mr. Speaker, the demand in this country has continued to rise, and that's why the government is coming with a proposal of a budget of 4.0 trillion, Mr. Speaker. When these proposals were brought to this House, Mr. Speaker, just using the words of Junaid Mohammed, most of the members across board in this particular House, Mr. Speaker, rose to say, this is the best budget because it adds us money to constituencies, because it pays for the JSS teachers' confirmation. They actually gave rise in this House to support all the budgetary proposals in this House, Mr. Speaker. When it came to the supply, Mr. Speaker, where do we get the money to supply the demand? We get through ordinary revenues, Mr. Speaker. When you add, it will rise to 2.7 trillion, Mr. Speaker. And we have a budget of 4. How do we fix the demand for employment, for roads, for infrastructure, for electricity? How do we fix the demand that is facing the people of Kenya? We fix by ensuring that there is enough supply, and this supply should not be a supply that is going to fix the people of Kenya. So, Speaker, and that is why the committee listened to Kenyans and said, bread, VAT, remove. Fixing this supply is not good. The motor vehicle tax, this tax is not good. We repealed a lot of sections, we amended a lot of sections that we felt it was punitive to the people of Kenya. And ensure that whatever report that we brought to this House, Mr. Speaker, is a report that is going to give a fair tax regime for the people of Kenya so that we can be able to...
Time up, Martin Owino. Time up.
I appreciate the time. As a representative of the great people of the constituency, Mr. Speaker, and by extension the whole country who are suffering under the yoke of the bill of Financial Bill 2023, I stand to oppose this bill. Mr. Speaker, the effect of 2023 bill, financial bill, is still weighing on our people. I'm not sure where my colleagues represent, but in my constituency, some kids, even as we brag of the price of unga gone down, are going to bed hungry and up to school the same way. Mr. Speaker, the dropouts from schools, because parents cannot afford the fee or the tuition, has gone up. Mr. Speaker, this has gone into even mental problems. Mr. Speaker, the statistic today says 1 in 4 in this country are suffering mental health. It's only that they have not reached the manifestation stage. So colleagues, even as we are here, 1 in 4 may be brewing up for mental disease. Joblessness is up, full of frustrations, poverty and disease, which at independence we said we are going to eradicate, is up. But more importantly, Mr. Speaker, what we are observing across the communities, however we gloss over it, is the crude death rate. People just dropping dead onto the morgue has become rampant because we are overburdening Kenyans with taxes. Mr. Speaker, the problem is not that Kenyans are not paying taxes. No. The problem is that the government is lavishly spending beyond their means. And at one point, and I was very happy to hear, that the Kenya Kwanza government is going to cut the coat according to the size of the clothing. Where that went, we don't know. But what we do know, if you want more, tax less. This is across the globe. That's how you stimulate the economy. But the idea that Kenyans are not paying enough tax, and now if this bill does not pass, then there will be nothing, no development, is falsy. Because Kenyans are overtaxed. The problem is, if you're listening to me, what other countries have done is what we call ITC, Innovation Tax Compliance, which has 3 pillars. Pillar number 1, you have to develop trust between tax administrators and taxpayers. And that is where we have to eliminate wastage, theft, and direct wrong utilization of funds. Pillar number 2 is a task enforcement. We have to invest in that so that we seal all the tax evaders. We'll collect more taxes than adding taxes to Kenyans. Number 3, which is very important, is facilitation. The mechanization of those taxes is very important. But for you to come and tell us that you are now proposing to remove bread, edible oil, mobile, motor vehicle, sugar transportation, diapers, you're the ones who collected the views of the people. Why didn't you put it in the bill? You are cheating. And Kenyans are listening. Those kids are more informed. By the way, don't say they are misled. If you say they are misled, you're the one who is lost. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mayor Maingi.
Me this chance to contribute to this very important bill. Mr. Speaker, when we discovered the internet, it was to change the way we communicate and the way we do business. It is unfortunate that some of us are using the same social handles to mislead a gullible public, and others are also using it to incite members of parliament. Mr. Speaker, I want
Are you stuck?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Allow me to inform my colleagues, those might not have read the Committee on Finance report and the Bill of Finance. Mr. Speaker, I want to laud the Committee on Finance for listening to Kenyans and agreeing to drop the contentious issues, and I want to read them one by one. Number one, 16% VAT on bread will be removed. Number two, excise duty on vegetable oil will be removed. VAT on transportation of sugar removed. 2.5% on motor vehicle tax removed. No increase on taxation on mobile money transfer. VAT on financial services and foreign exchange transactions has also been removed. Eco levy on locally manufactured products like sanitary towels, diapers, phones, computers, tires, and motorcycles is also removed. VAT registration threshold increased from 5 million to 8 million, reducing the need for small businesses to register. Responsibility of electronic invoicing, e-teams, by KRA removed for farmers and small-scale businesses with a turnover of below 1 million shillings. Excise duty on alcoholic beverages will be based on alcohol content, not volume. Higher alcohol content will attract more duty. Pension schemes exemption increased from 20,000 shillings to 30,000 shillings per month. Excise duty imposed only on imported finished products. Mr. Speaker, I want to take this chance to speak to three issues. I want to speak to the issue of pensions and the issue of excise duty levied on finished products and the issue of VAT on bread. Mr. Speaker, with pensions tax relief from 20,000 to 30,000, we are encouraging a savings culture in this country. We are going to encourage those that are employed to save, and that they are not going to be a burden to others when they retire, because they'll be having more money, which is tax-free. Mr. Speaker, there's no country that grows from imports. When we say that we are imposing a tariff on all the imported finished goods, we are protecting our local manufacturers. Mr. Speaker, by protecting our local manufacturers, we are saying yes to more jobs in this country, and more jobs are going to support hundreds of livelihoods in this country. Mr. Speaker, with the local manufacturers being supported, we are also going to be reviving some of those industries that collapsed that collapsed because of demand in this country. I am saying yes because I know with locally manufactured diapers, with locally manufactured sanitary pads, we are going to have, this country will see the revival of many gineries, including Moya Ginery, Mr. Speaker.
Time is up. Mule. Clerk.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to put the records very clear. From the word-go, I oppose this bill in totality. For simple reason, the committee and the Kenya Kwanza regime have hoodwinked Kenyans on the basis that they are removing VAT on bread, they are removing motor tax, and the rest. We saw what they proposed at State House. I want to put these guys on notice. There are three things which they have introduced in this bill to tax Kenyans more. The first thing they have introduced, Mr. Speaker, it is the new clause of road maintenance levy. And some of us, we are not fools anymore. Mr. Speaker, the road maintenance levy is supposed to raise an estimate of 46 billion shillings, members. The second thing they have introduced in this bill, which is more serious and more fundamental to the common mwananchi, it is the IDF. They are raising IDF from 1.5% to 2.5%, whereby they are targeting to raise an estimate of 12 billion shillings. The third thing they have put on their report and the finance bill is the railway development levy, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on those three fundamentals, they should be raising a total whooping of 88.8 billion shillings compared to what they are telling Kenyans they have removed, which is 76 billion shillings. So, the question is, when you are telling Kenyans you have removed the 16% VAT, are you not aware the wheat we use in this country to produce bread is 80% imported? Then you increase the IDF and the railway development levy, whereby it covers the 16% you are telling Kenyans you are removing. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, look at the medical imports for the common mwananchi in this country. We as a country, we produce very little drugs. Quite a number of drugs, we import 70%, Mr. Speaker, of drugs to this country. And in the morning, when Zamzang said that this bill will increase the cost of medicine in this country, you betrayed him because probably she didn't have the facts. Let me give you the facts. 70% of drugs imported in this country will be subjected to railway development levy and IDF, which you have increased, meaning that any patient who is supposed to get drugs in this country, the cost of medication goes up. What's wrong with you people? You think that we are fools? We'll tell you the way it is now and the food. Mr. Speaker, I want to say this without any fear of contradiction. The mamamboga, the boda, and the common mwananchi of this country, if we increase the fuel levy through the maintenance road and through this bill, which is 7 shillings per liter, the common mwananchi living on less than $1 will not afford his life again. Mr. Speaker, is not a rocket science. The moment you increase tax on fuel products, you have changed the livelihood of Kenyans. So, Mr. Speaker, we should not waste any more time. We need to pull and ask the committee to stop lying to Kenyans. They have removed bread, they have removed edible oil, they have removed all those things you had put on your bill. For simple reason, Mr. Speaker,
We want to call upon all Kenyans tomorrow to wake up and say no to draconia's finance bill, which is being proposed, and giving Kenyans an hope and bringing that hope in another hand called Railway Development Levy, IDF, and the 7 shillings on fuel. Please, don't fool Kenyans anymore. We'll stand with the 52 million Kenyans from tomorrow until sense comes to your mind. You cannot tax Kenyans anymore. I oppose, Mr. Speaker.
KJ, member for Dagoretti South.
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful that I have caught the Speaker's eye finally. And Mr. Speaker, this is where the finance bill belongs. And I'm so glad that we are here debating it. Because, Mr. Speaker, we've got a lot of work to do in clearing and disabusing the misinformation that has been peddled about this finance bill, Mr. Speaker. Misinformation that is even leading our children to the streets on wrong information. Children who have been made to believe that the finance bill is a one clause, one question that will come to the House and members will vote yes or no. Each of every one of those children that I have engaged when they came to my social media asking whether I'm voting yes or no, I asked them which clause, and none of them could respond because they're just responding to what is being peddled in the media. But the finance bill belongs to the floor of this House. And Mr. Speaker, we are able now to tell the truth to Kenyans that the finance bill is what is going to allow us to be able to fund each and every single project that was listed in the budget, Mr. Speaker. But most importantly, Mr. Speaker, we will also be able to talk to Kenyans about the process that we have undertaken, the work that has been done by the Finance Committee, the committee that has engaged Kenyans so robustly that the wishes of the Kenyans have now been heard. There were antagonistic clauses, Mr. Speaker, that were offensive to some Kenyans. These clauses, Mr. Speaker, have been attended to in the right place. And there are even proposals to drop some of these offensive clauses, Mr. Speaker. It is said that a lie has speed, but the truth has endurance. Kenyans were made to believe that when we were passing the budget here is the day that we were prosecuting the finance bill. Some of them were even coming out in the streets on the day we were reading the budget because the lie was too fast, Mr. Speaker. The lies that have been peddled in media, Mr. Speaker, have been too many. But today, we have the opportunity to put the record straight that if we have a theme that we can put on this finance bill, the theme is that we have a finance bill that seeks to make Kenya not a net importer, Mr. Speaker.
Order, KJ. Yes, member for Busia County. What's the point of order? And under what standing order?
Standing Order 91. Kenyans did not lie. They went to the street, and that is what prompted the editing of what you had already put. So let us not call Kenyans liars, but true citizens who cannot allow their country to go into a brink as they watch. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I might not have the time, I hope my time has been preserved, to take the Honorable Catherine Amayo through the process of budget making in this country. That this House is not moved by external forces. This House moves in its own motion, suo motu, on matters that have to do with budgeting. That the committee was already in the process of engaging Kenyans long before a fake demonstration was organized, Mr. Speaker. And the lie persists, Mr. Speaker, because even some of the photos that we were seeing out of the streets, I can tell you as a graphic editor that they do not belong to this country. Photos were being taken off the internet and being edited and posed as Generation Z. I am a photo expert, Mr. Speaker, and I can point out to you photos that were edited to look like they were in the streets of Nairobi, but they were not. But that was not the point, Mr. Speaker. My point, Mr. Speaker, I would like to let this House know that every digital image has a digital footprint. If a photo was taken in 2020 and is being used yesterday, we can tell from the metadata of that photo, Mr. Speaker. So there is no debate about that. Mr. Speaker, the truth of the matter is that we have a finance bill that seeks to move Kenya from being a net importer so that we can have cottage industries, Mr. Speaker. We can start our own manufacturing. We can reward any Kenyan who seeks to, and preserve a minute for me, Mr. Speaker, because of the interruption. I was saying, Mr. Speaker, that this finance bill allows us to tell the truth to Kenyans. For a whole 2 months, Kenyans have been told that the economy is in dire straits. But all indicators, Mr. Speaker, are telling us that the economy is moving in the right direction. Inflation is dropping from 9% to 5%.
Time up. Time up. Time up. Dick Maungu. Order, honorable members. Merely you contributed in silence. Please accord the same silence to your colleagues.
Thank you, Speaker, for the opportunity given that I may also add my voice to this important debate. I wish to start from the word go, that I, on behalf of my
And
people of
merely you
Rwanda,
came here and told me you'll not bully any young MPs. Now you are doing exactly the opposite.
thank you, Speaker.
Go on, Maungu.
I, on behalf of the great people of Rwanda and the young generation of this country that came out yesterday to speak for themselves, I do want to say that I reject the bill. Mr. Speaker, the finance bill of 2024, just like that of 2023, has been a highly debated piece of legislation, Mr. Speaker, simply because it has been very offensive. Mr. Speaker, we'll agree that if given a glass of water and somebody drops in a drop of poison, that whole glass becomes poisonous and therefore unfit for human consumption. Finance Bill of 2024 is an equivalent, Mr. Speaker, of a glass of water that has been poisoned with a drop of poison that makes it fully unsuitable for human consumption. This bill, Mr. Speaker, has had serious proposals which to a great extent were going to offend and if anything, kind of harass the very many people that depend on the economy of this country, Mr. Speaker. There is a talk about having climbed down on some of the proposals, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, having a proposal on what is basic, for example, what most of us eat, most of the Kenyan people in the common household, Mr. Speaker, consume bread. And therefore, proposing an increase in the same element of food becomes a disastrous idea to the very Kenyan, Mr. Speaker, that we purport to represent. Mr. Speaker, you'll agree with me that Finance Bill of 2023 had a projection of collecting close to over 200 billion, Mr. Speaker. But as it is, it was only able to realize close to 57% of its initial target. 2024, Mr. Speaker, this bill is poised to bring in close to 302 billion, Mr. Speaker. But from the experience of last year, it may be quite a big target to achieve, Mr. Speaker. Our question, therefore, is, why couldn't the government of the day decide to postpone any new increment of taxes for the time being, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that they are able to put steps in place to help them realize the shortfall they had last year, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, yesterday we saw what has never happened in this country, where a young generation, people in their early 20s, Mr. Speaker, came out to speak for themselves because they felt and believed that this House could not stand in the gap for them, Mr. Speaker. It is embarrassing, Mr. Speaker, to see our young people, Mr. Speaker, sacrificing themselves to go out on the streets because they have lost confidence, they have lost trust, and they have no hope in the institution of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let it be known that should Kenyans suffer, the person to ask those hard questions is none other than members seated here this evening, who will be able to pass this bill, Mr. Speaker, which will add unnecessary burden, unnecessary heavy weight to our people, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, as Kenyans are watching this evening, I want every Kenyan to take charge. I want every Kenyan, Mr. Speaker, take note of what his member of Parliament will be speaking this evening with regard to this bill, Mr. Speaker. A member who goes on to support this bill, Mr. Speaker, is a member who desires that these people should not have life tomorrow. A member who goes on to support this draconian bill, Mr. Speaker, is a member that does not think good for his people. And therefore, I want to urge this great House, Mr. Speaker, that as we are standing today, let us say no to this bill so that we may have an opportunity to give hope to our people. Mr. Speaker, as it has been pointed out, there's a proposal, yes, to bring down fuel levy, to bring down motor vehicle circulation tax. But at the same report, Mr. Speaker, there's a new clause that indicates that fuel is supposed to increase by a whooping Kenya shillings, 7 shillings, Mr. Speaker. I want somebody to tell me, Mr. Speaker, how on earth can we therefore go on burdening that mamamboga, that hustler with an extra shilling at the pump, Mr. Speaker? This will be finishing our people, this will be shrinking our people, Mr. Speaker, and if anything, trying to freeze or to shrink the disposable income within their pocket. I therefore stand to oppose. Thank you.
Titus Lotte. Give him the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to contribute to the Finance Bill 2024. Mr. Speaker, I would have rejected and voted no for this bill if I had rented my brain and my mind to the people that will misuse it. I would have voted no, but I have not rented my mind. Mr. Speaker, I would have voted no and rejected this bill if I was a tabula rasa with no brains to read, reason, and analyze. But I am not a tabula rasa. Mr. Speaker, the reason why I say that is I have looked at the document, the bill, and the proposal therein, and realized that everything that the people of Kachaliba sent me to represent them, all the punitive taxes have been removed. And so I will actually be mad to come here and start saying we reject this bill in totality. Mr. Speaker, I will not, because everything that affects Wanjiko, everything that affects the people that I represent have been removed. Mr. Speaker, the white man say that if you want to hide an information from a black person, put it in writing. And I have attested it today, Mr. Speaker, that everything that has been written here, nobody has read, but all insinuation that is coming from the members of the public that have been incited, and also some members of this parliament, are actually hearsays. They are innuendos. They are assumptions. So, Mr. Speaker, that is the reason why I say we probably need to unback this thing and get it out of writing to start even educating these people by saying, because if writing hides information from them, then let us talk to them so that they also see that the things they talk about, they are talking about 16% on bread, something that has been proposed for removal. They are talking about 25% for edible oil, something that has been proposed for removal. They are talking about mobile charges, something that has been proposed for removal. It is because it is written and they have not seen it. The last one, Mr. Speaker, why I support this is because of 5 things. One, because for the first time we employed 46,000 intern teachers, and we intend to confirm them. This country has suffered cases of unemployment. And if the bill is bringing 46,000 people onto our jobs, do we just want to throw it away? I believe let us also sympathize with those people that are unemployed that want to get a job. Because if they get a job, they are going to improve the economy of this country. Let us sympathize the 20,000 more that are coming into an internship this year so that they can be employed next year. Let us sympathize. If you say no, you are also saying no to the employment of these people. The next one is about the pastoralists that I represent. For the first time, pastoralists are supposed to be compensated for the losses of their livestock. For me, that's a big thing. Mr. Speaker, I support because of that. I also support again, Mr. Speaker, because of the fact that local manufacturing is supposed to be improved in this bill, Mr. Speaker. I know when I used to work as the CEO of women groups that were trying to form cottage industries that will manufacture the sanitary towels. They were killed because they were cheap imports of sanitary towels from China. Mr. Speaker, if you want to grow our economy, we will need to improve our manufacturing. And manufacturing, we do not need high quality at this point. Every country that has developed started with a low quality, and then with time they improve it. But at the end of it all, we will have employment in this country. So, Mr. Speaker, how do we improve our industries if we say that because they are cheap, they are low quality, we are not going to start? We have to start from somewhere. And finally, Mr. Speaker, as I sit down, I will support, because I'm not a tabula rasa, I will support because I have not been brainwashed. Mr. Speaker, I will support this bill as amended, because everything that is punitive has been removed. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Thank you, Dr. Ochanda. Try.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, from onset and on the basis of the two documents that are in front of us, I want to oppose the bill, but I support the report as work in progress, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what is more critical here is the process at which we go through the stages of the budgetary process. Now, what there is, Mr. Speaker, if you look at these stages from February when we have the BPS, we get to April and May when we are doing the estimates, you get the stage where we are doing the treasury statement, the budget statement, and you get at the stage where we are discussing the revenue raising process. Mr. Speaker, these stages need to be tied. And as a house, because we have not tied them properly, that's where they are missing dots. There are dots along the stages. Mr. Speaker, if you look at now the BPS in relation to the budget, there are definitely different figures, which sometimes go beyond what the BPS expects. If you look at the estimates, Mr. Speaker, you realize that there are figures and there are proposals in terms of projects and activities that members are doing sometimes without the knowledge in terms of where are we going to raise the money. Mr. Speaker, what I'm trying to suggest, or I'm trying to say is that if we are able, for example, at the estimate stage, be able to be talking about the activities, talking about projects, and talking about what is to be funded, if at that time we have indicative sources of revenue, we have indicative figures, I think will be more useful to this country than where we are deliberately saying that the budget is fine, because there were very many good things in it, but then after a week, we are saying, no, we are not too sure where the money is going to come from, so it is bad. So, Mr. Speaker, this is exactly where I'm still insisting that those stages, we must get away with how to tie them up. There must be a string that ties them from the level 1 up to the stage when we are raising revenue. Beyond that, Mr. Speaker, we also need to look at when we are, this uproar. Why is it there's a lot of uproar in the last 2 years? We need to look at it in terms of if the traditional sources of revenue were working before and there were no issues, what is it that we need to do to work around the traditional sources of revenue such that we don't go creative ways which are bring a lot of issues, bring a lot of things that people don't understand, particularly when you get into this communication industry. There are a lot of new things. And when you move in to look for revenue across it, then there are definitely many things that must tie you to be in war with the young people, Mr. Speaker. So I think these are things that we really need to look at. The issue of, when we're looking at the issue of budget or no, the revenue, there are things that you can avoid. You can avoid taxes. I think the nation needs to be told also. But you can't evade. What is it that you can avoid? For example, not everybody else pays for taxes on beer. It is up to those who consume it. You can avoid that if we get into other avenues where there are things that are brought that are not conducive, are not good for you. You have the space not to get into them. Mr. Speaker, that's exactly what I'm saying. I support the report, but I don't support the bill because the report is still work in progress, and in the next number of hours, we are still working on how to improve on it, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. That is his position, Maungu. You don't have to prod anybody. Member for Aldai.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the finance bill.
Member for Nakuru Town East. What is out of order? Kaitanyi, take your seat.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I know everybody thinks that I'm moving under Standing Order number 95. Honorable Speaker, I beg to Standing Order number 30, hours of meeting, and specifically Section 3, 4, and Section 6. Honorable Speaker, Section 3 of Standing Order number 30 says, notwithstanding paragraph 1 and 2, the House may resolve A, to extend its sitting time. B, I don't want to go to B because it's another time and date, and C. 4, it says, a motion under paragraph 3A shall be moved at least 30 minutes before the time appointed for adjournment. And Honorable Speaker, now it's around 55 minutes to the time. And 6 says, upon the conclusion of all proceedings under paragraphs 2, 3, and 4, or 4 of this standing order, or upon an earlier completion or deferment of all business standing upon the order paper for the sitting, the Speaker shall adjourn the House without putting a question. Honorable Speaker, I know we are supposed to adjourn at 9. And under the standing order, we can be able, if we agree, to proceed. Honorable Speaker, 55 minutes only means 11 members of Parliament who have at 5 minutes. So if we can move to midnight, then it will give us more time for us to be able to debate. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Kaitani, carry on as I consult my clerks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I had earlier said that I stand to support the finance bill. And one thing we can see now in the country is that the conversation has changed to become politics of about a finance bill. My grandmother in the village and the Generation Z that we saw yesterday and everybody else, including us here, are talking about a finance bill, which is a step in the right direction. Why do I support the finance bill? One is the introduction of eco-tax. In around 2016, the ban on polythene was imposed in our country. And I think at that time, there was a lot of hue and cry on how packaging will become expensive and how cost of living will become expensive. But NEMA stood its ground and the effect of the polythene ban took effect. Today, our country is one of the cleanest cleanest country because we do not have polythene papers. But we have imported finished products that have polythene. And I think introducing the eco-tax will help us in managing that waste that we've already removed from our raw materials and all the way from our local manufacture where we do not introduce any polythene. Over and above the tax, the eco-tax, it is going to create employment because we are saying that we are putting eco-tax on imported finished products. And therefore, we encourage manufacturing, local manufacturing. And if we encourage local manufacturing, what we are expecting, Mr. Speaker, is that we will get employment for our very youth who currently do not have employment because most manufacturers would prefer to do local manufacture and not pay eco-tax as opposed to importing finished product that will attract an eco-tax. Also, the products or the raw materials that we have in our country that are currently exported for value addition outside the country will have a reverse where those raw materials will be value added and the persons or the people, the farmers and all those people who produce the raw material will get direct, not only direct employment also, but also direct income, therefore increasing the tax base. And not to mention, of course, the environment, because we will have improved on our environment and we will have extra revenue to deal with those wastages that come from finished imported products that already have eco and friendly packagings. I'm also supporting this bill because of the edible oil. About 3 weeks ago, we met manufacturers of the edible oil, and those manufacturers told us that if the taxes were going to be imposed on crude oil that they import to do the finishing of edible oil, then the cost of living would have gone up and the cost of edible oil would have gone up. I'm happy that the proposed amendments that we have in the finance bill has totally removed all the taxes that were going to be imposed on the edible oil. So therefore, that encourages employment, and of course, we have both the direct and indirect employment that comes from edible oil. The only thing I want to encourage is that these manufacturers look local and ensure that our farmers who are currently growing sunflower and canola are also considered in terms of production of crude vegetable oil, is in the conversion of edible oil, so that we don't just export labor or export revenue to countries that produce crude oil, yet we can grow it in our country. I think the other issue that we have that this finance bill is taking care of, Mr. Speaker, is that it is correcting some of the ills that has happened in previous finance acts. One of them being that the cost of money, for example, the taxes on per diems for employees has now been increased from 2,000 shillings to 5% of gross salary. That means that an employee will have more disposable income, and as well as the taxes on NHIF and housing levy has now been put as tax deductible. So therefore, we reduce the pay as you earn for the salaried employees, and that has allowed the salaried employee to have more disposable income, which is something that is a correction from the previous finance bills. And therefore, when we say that the finance bill is not should be disbanded, should be rejected, then some of these ills that are being corrected in this finance bill will not be benefited by the salaried employees. So with that, Honorable Speaker, I support the finance bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I give the next speaker, Honorable Kikaria, I have looked at your proposal. I had already given direction on the timings and the manner of debate of this bill. In fact, I had said we'll go up to 9:30, but the clerks advised me that today the House rises at 9. So we'll rise at 9. This is not the last day of debate. We are starting again tomorrow at 9:30. And we'll go on up to 1. Then we'll start at 2:30. And in the course of the afternoon, I can also note, sitting where I'm sitting, that other than the desire and the need, and justifiably so, for every member to speak to the bill, there is a lot of tedious repetitions. But I will still indulge every member who will get a chance to speak. Tomorrow afternoon, all things being equal, we will vote on the bill. Those of you with amendments, make sure you file them before 1 and tomorrow. And we'll give you direction on when, after voting in the afternoon, depending on how you vote, when we'll go to committee of the whole. I'll now give the floor to Lillian Kogo.
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. And you, as you rightfully said, Speaker, is that you have as well been there from 9 o'clock, and so have all of us. And this is because of the interest and how emotive this particular issue is. And I want to thank you for giving me an opportunity to put my voice and the voice of the great people of Rangwe constituency in this matter. I am reliably requested or required or commanded by the great people of Rangwe constituency to reject the bill, and I will surely do that because they are the ones who sent me to Parliament. But I must also, as an academic, do that with reasons which I should think Rangwe people are going to stand by. Honorable Speaker, at some point during debate, it was mentioned that every financial year, every year, would keep having financial bills. We are going to have a finance bill for this year. we are going to have a finance bill for 2025, 2026, or whatever time, we will continue having finance bills. But I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that as much as we want to have finance bills every year, it would be prudent, Honorable Speaker, that if we have an act, that act should be allowed or should be given time to operationalize. We run it for a time, Honorable Speaker, so that we are able to critically analyze or critically make observations on its goodness and on its badness. And even in the course of debate, Honorable Speaker, it was mentioned that probably the young people we are seeing rise up out there may not know really about this finance bill. But I can assure my colleague and my friend that these young people are well informed, Honorable KJ. At times they're even ahead of us with information. And these are people who know how to comb and dig information from wherever they are able to get it. So we should not undermine their capacity to be informed on matters that happen in Parliament. And in any case, Honorable Speaker, these are the next cohort of parliamentarians. So I think they're in the exercise of practicing, but they are also exercising their democratic right. They have the right to picketing. So if they do so as young people, we should give them room, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, having said that, I also want to appreciate what the committee has done. The committee listened and the committee made amendments. So we have on one hand the committee report, but also we have on one hand, the committee did proposals for amendments, and on another hand, we have the bill in itself. So that gives room for hope. And from the point where I stand, I may not be very good, Honorable Speaker, at estimating the age of the substantive chairperson of the Finance Committee. But I can literally guess, Honorable Speaker, that he's a young person. So I want to tell the chair of Finance Committee, my brother and the honorable member of Parliament, you are a young person and the young people are looking at your capability and your capacity to run a major docket like that. Let us not take things for granted. It is a career you are building. And I want to say that there are many issues to reject this bill on. When we talk about not bringing taxation or not making gluten-free bread taxable, what exactly do we mean? What is the science behind it? What is the issue on allergies about this? Was it medically informed? So if we start tearing and scrutinizing this bill, Honorable Speaker, to the extent that we tear it apart, all of it will be rejected. But for me and Rangwe people, Honorable Speaker, on the bill, I stand to reject.
No. Thank you, Lillian. Taitumu?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Taitumu and others, those who want to speak, stop menacing the Speaker with hand gestures. I can see you and I'll give you a chance to speak.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. I arise to support the bill. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the committee. First of all, when I went through the document, I saw 203 entities were given an opportunity to present their views in connection or in relation to the bill. The committee listened to their views objectively and made various adjustments to the clauses that were punitive to the Kenyans and mainly the Mamboga and other citizens of this country. Mr. Speaker, I have heard you make several pronouncements that those who have amendments, they tender the amendments before 1 tomorrow. This is to say that the bill is tendered, or the bill is brought to the parliament so that the members can get an opportunity to make an amendment and not to reject that are meant for the posterity of this country. Mr. Speaker, this government inherited and disjointed education structure that requires massive and colossal amounts of money to make it raw. One, Mr. Speaker, 46,000 teachers are about to transition from the interns to JSS to permanent and personal basis. Mr. Speaker, the clauses that were unbarred were dropped, others were amended to make sure that this bill benefits the citizens of this country. Young Kenyans have jammed our phones with messages of reject. But when you engage them by asking them to expound on the reasons as to why we should reject, some go mute. Majority of them go mute. The reason is that they have been confused. They have been